So I'm Daisy. I'm a practicing solicitor, a home education hub founder, a former school governor, I'm an entrepreneur, a life coach, a nonviolent communication practitioner, and the most important job of all, I'm mum to twins. So people who've known me since childhood might be quite surprised to hear that I'm starting a school, largely because I actually had a pretty good time in the state system. I went to a grammar school, selective grammar school, and I came out with the grades I needed. I've ended up in a profession that comes from a kind of academic background with lots of learning. I got 2 degrees. But my experience of education was very much, you're here because you need that grade to be successful in life. And I never really questioned that at the time. I just thought, okay, well, if I need that grade or those grades, that's what I'll do. And I set about doing the bare minimum to get what I was told I needed. I chose the easiest possible degree I could think of, philosophy, because I thought, yeah, I quite like chatting about things like that. And I came out at the end with a 2-1, which was what I was told I needed. And my personal tutor described my grade as the ultimate economy of effort. And I was so proud. That was exactly what I'd sought to do. I always wanted to save all of my energy for the things I really enjoyed in life. And funny enough, I was a completely different person at work. So I started work at 16 at McDonald's in my hometown of High Wycombe, and I worked really hard and I loved it, and I got on really well with my colleagues, and I progressed really quickly. I became a manager when I was 17, and I was a completely different person at school. I would be just doing the bare minimum to get through the lessons, and at work I was something so much more. And later in life, I've found things I'm really interested in, particularly how children learn, what fuels intrinsic motivation, and I've been experiencing intrinsic motivation myself and finding things I'm interested in, and just that fire of interest feels amazing. And I feel it's a real shame that so many children are missing out on that and having those years of feeling a bit bored, or maybe there only being 1 or 2 lessons that they like. And so I'm setting about opening a school for my children and other children so they can have something that really sets them alight from a young age. Well, our school is going to work off a foundational basis that well-being underpins absolutely everything related to learning. Some people might be familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that we want the children to feel safe and happy and like they belong in the school environment before we even move on to thinking about learning. So we'll be modelling and teaching children nonviolent communication skills, which really help people to manage conflicts. And really young children, in Scandinavia, some schools, even for under 7s, are able to manage their own conflicts because they've learnt this process, and it's so empowering for them. So we'll show the children how to do that. That then helps to overcome all those little niggles and unpleasantnesses that you sometimes get in schools where I actually had a really nice time at school, but there was one day, and I still remember it now, where I was isolated from the rest of the girls in the class, and they were teasing me and pretending they couldn't hear me. And it was awful. Like, there was no way I was even hearing what the teacher was saying. All I was thinking about was how, this fear of being on my own and not having any friends. So making sure the children all feel safe, understood, and that they understand each other is a real foundational principle for the school. In addition to that, the kids will have a lot of autonomy over how the school is run. So we'll have what's called a sociocratic model, where there are circles and everyone who is interested in a particular matter will sit in a circle together, proposals will be put forward, and everyone will discuss whether they think it's a good idea. And it's not a case of the tyranny of the majority that you often find in democratic settings, but here everybody has the right of veto. So if something doesn't feel right for somebody, they're entitled to say, no, it's not for me and here's why. But they'll be encouraged to discuss and see if difficulties can be overcome and progress in a way where everyone's happy. So that will be another key part of the school, and that will feed into how the school's run, as well as what the kids learn. And most of what we're teaching will be a mixture of kind of project-based learning and self-directed learning. So the project-based learning will be working with a company called the Biophilic Education Alliance, and they've done this amazing job of mapping across everything that kids would learn in a normal state school, so science, maths, English, and they've mapped it across into these project pathways that are so much more interesting and engaging. So they'll be learning about aliens and space and animals on the planet and where they live, and they'll create their own, and then they'll make a little model for a stop motion animation, and they'll make a film about it, and they'll put on a screening night for the parents. So much more engaging and interesting for the kids to be involved in, with so many elements. And there'll be lots of other ways that they'll learn in that way in a project setting, without separating out, this is maths time, this is science time, and so on. In addition, if the kids are feeling like that particular project doesn't speak to me, I'm not interested, they'll always have the option to say, actually I want to do something else, and we'll be staffed adequately to support that. So there'll be other options. In addition, we make space every day for play. In the early years, they're starting to catch up with this. Early years mandate play, and in some schools, more progressive schools, they're creating space for play up to about year 2. But play is so important for everybody, particularly to fuel creativity and curiosity, and the social emotional learning around play is so much more involved. So there'll be plenty of space and time for play or continuing projects or whatever it is the kids will want to be doing in the afternoons. And it won't be a surprise to people that we'll also value time in nature. So we're surrounded by amazing countryside here. So they'll take trips to the woods, up in the hills. There's a lovely green outside where our school will be, so they'll have time to play. When the energy lifts, there isn't a fixed schedule like there is in school. If the adults in the room notice the energy levels are rising and the kids need to move, we'll take some time out and we'll move and come back when everybody's ready. So because of our size and being very small, we'll be able to meet people's needs much more easily, and it will be the kind of environment that kids, particularly those who might have struggled with the sensory overload of being an enormous school with hundreds of other children, will really thrive in. There's less going on, there's the freedom to move, and there's the autonomy over what they're doing. It's not, I've got to hold myself in and do what I'm told now. So we really hope it'll be the kind of environment where kids are just really going to thrive and be self-directed and interested in the world around them. So it will be really small. We'll have 24 children in total, which is obviously smaller than a normal size class. And we're going to have a mixture of ages between the ages of 7 and 13 at the beginning of the school year. And the children will learn together in mixed age groups. We'll have a ratio of 1 adult to every 6 children, so they'll be really well supported in the activities they're doing. But also if a particular child or children are feeling something isn't for them, then we'll have enough adults in the room to be able to support them setting up in something else and doing another project together. One of the things I've seen home educating over the last couple of years is how amazing age mixing is for children. The older children really thrive, it brings out their nurturing spirit, and they love to, it helps them consolidate their own learning while they're sharing it with the younger kids. The younger kids adore learning from the older children, and it helps them kind of step up to be a little bit more grown up in some cases to meet the older kids where they're at. And it's just so beneficial for everyone involved. And I've also noticed that in that kind of environment, children aren't constantly comparing themselves to everyone else. They don't look at that kid and be like, well, they're the same age as me, they should be able to read and write like I can, or I should be able to read and write like they can, or it's just every person is individual. Some people have spent more time doing things, some are older, some are younger, and so yeah, it'll be the kind of environment where they'll mix together. And we'll also accept a mixture of full-time students who'll be with us 5 days a week, flexi schoolers who'll be with us 4 days, or home educated kids who can join us for 1 or 2 days a week on a regular basis. So we'll have a real mixed community of children who will spend some time in school and some time out, or some will be there the whole time. And we'll also be open 45 weeks a year, so much more in tune with working family life. I've always wondered how crazy it is. How do people cope when you get 4 or 5 weeks holiday in a year and the kids are off 6 over Christmas, over the summer? So we'll have a system that works much more cohesively with family life, and also because we're open so much of the year, that also gives families the freedom to take their children on holidays out of school holiday time. And we really want to support parents spending time with their kids. So yeah, that will be something that will hopefully be a bit of a silver lining for parents making the switch. So the bulk of the money we're crowdfunding for is actually to add some renovation works to this really lovely old school hall we're in today. We'll operate from here 3 days a week, and there are some works that are needed to make it Ofsted friendly, so we need to put in an additional toilet, some shower facilities, and upgrade the kitchen, and add some extra fire safety measures. So the bulk of the money we raise will come here, which will benefit the whole local community. It's a public building for 4 days of every week. In addition, we need to raise some money to support with having a consultant come in for the fire safety, and the Ofsted charge you to come and assess the premises, so we need to cover the costs of that assessment. Beyond that, the school will self-fund through parents' fees, so those fees will keep the school running beyond there. Who will benefit? The local community and initially the children and parents in the school. But really I see the school as being an antidote to the increasing polarisation in society that you see. So many families I know now, when they meet each other, are like, well, we can't talk about this, we can't talk about that. And I think people need to rediscover the skill of understanding where people are coming from. And the children at this school will hopefully have this ripple effect as they go out into the world and demonstrate those skills, and other people will see and feel the connection and learn from them. And the majority of money that we make from the school will be reinvested into this school and to other projects, so that we can start up tiny schools like this all over the UK, where children can access an education that cherishes their well-being and their interests all the way through up until the age of 13. So our hope is this will be the first of many projects, and the beneficiaries will reach far beyond this community.